Hey, what's up, you guys? Bloody Jacob here to bring you a quick, seemingly at least to you guys, random movie review. And that's going to be talking about Texas Chainsaw 3D, which came out, yes, back in 2013. There are definitely other movies in the franchise I could talk about. You guys probably wonder why I am specifying this one right now. I'm sure you think I'm going to slam it. But no, I've rewatched this one quite a bit, and I actually do find this one to be a bit of an underrated entry in the franchise. Now, I personally, there's actually a few other entries that I like over the original. I recognize the original for what it is and the time it came out, but I personally enjoy the 03 remake, the beginning, yes, this one, the 2022 Netflix movie, and even the other face, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3 back in the 90s. More. I prefer those. And apologies if I'm not really speaking correctly. But I wanted to kind of start off talking about this one again because this one's probably the worst regarded, like generally in the franchise. This and probably the Next Generation. But I've always had a soft spot for this movie. Outside of some shoddy acting early on, and maybe bits of CG towards the end, I genuinely don't see a problem with this one. In fact, I think it was pretty refreshing, story-wise. Taking the perspective of the town sort of kind of rising up and just essentially, ironically, massacring the Sawyer family. This, of course, takes place after the original film. And then as we have Alexandra Daddario's character, she finds out that she's inherited this estate, from a grandma, and she has this house, and she doesn't read the rest of the letter when she gets there. And then as she goes, she ends up finding out that, she was born a Sawyer and, adopted by a couple of people who were involved in massacring the Sawyers. It doesn't make, it doesn't try to excuse what, Leatherface does or the Sawyers did or anything like that. But, it sort of says, okay, they probably, also massacred some people that didn't fully need that kind of punishment for the extent they were involved in. Maybe her mother in this, reality of the franchise, because there are a couple extra members here who aren't usually in Texas Chainsaw Massacre stories. And so you kind of have this element of the corrupt town and the police department and stuff like that, and the mayor. So it sort of turns it on its head a little bit and makes it a little bit less of a straightforward narrative. Especially, I like how the ending goes, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. Alexandra Daddario, I've always been a fan of. I think she does well here. Aside from the "do your thing, cuz," which was a line. Okay, it's not her fault. I actually think she does a good job here. I think she has a fair amount of charisma, especially in the later part of the film where she actually does sort of channel, that side to herself. I almost wanted to see her do that more, in terms of, sort of acting like a Sawyer, and like you can see that almost bloodlust in her, towards the end of the movie. And I just thought her expressions, during that were, pretty fantastic. You have people like Trey Songz in it who really has no business being in the movie. And, a couple others, but there's even like Tanya Ramond, I think her name is, who plays Alexandra Daddario's character's friend. I've seen her in even something like Goliath, the Billy Bob Thornton series on Amazon. So I don't think she's a bad actress, even though her character is pretty particular in this. But, that brings up another thing. People complain, oh, why does she end up sort of helping Leatherface in the end? After what he did to her friends. Really, you're gonna you're gonna ask that when Trey Songz was her boyfriend? The actress I just mentioned is her friend, and they're sleeping together behind her back. Actually, before the movie started, they had done it before, and they do it again during the movie. So once she realizes that in the midst of things, why would she give a fuck what Leatherface did to them? Um, so that issue I don't necessarily get. Even Scott Eastwood is in here as the son to the mayor. He's one of the deputies and everything like that. Not to mention Gunnar Hansen, the original Leatherface, having a cameo as another member of the family. I think sort of what was supposed to be the grandpa character. So that was kind of a cool touch. You have Tom Barry, who I like, Richard Reel, who's been in a lot of genre stuff, even genre vet and legend Bill Moseley actually plays Drayton Sawyer in the flashback opening, which is a perfect fit, for these days. Dan Yeager, I think, is who plays Leatherface. I think he does a decent enough physical job as the character. The mask design has actually really grown on me quite a bit. Sorry if I'm saying a lot. But yeah, I think there are actually some really, really solid kills in this too. A couple of the saws in half look pretty good. You have him sort of hacking one of the deputies that comes down on the recording on his phone, with the hatchet or whatever he uses. And not to mention, I like sort of the duel at the end once Alexandra Daddario, helps him out and frees him. And that's another thing. They made him an anti-hero. No, they did not make Leatherface an anti-hero. They simply shifted the perspective. They essentially shifted, the perspective of the characters we're following to a point. So we're just seeing it from a new angle. That they always do the same story, but now they're complaining that they sort of do something different with it. So again, it's not like excusing any of what they do. It's just that they sort of take this, different narrative angle and make it less of a black and white situation in terms of what would come from all this happening. Basically, blood causes blood. Violence brings more violence, and it turns into like an even worse situation than it was going to be with these sorts of people. And I think it was interesting. Maybe a bit of sympathy for Leatherface. As they even say in the movie, he has the mind of an 8-year-old boy essentially, and he's lost his family in Berlin for how many years now. So it's pretty. I think it's pretty interesting when he is able to recognize Alexandra Daddario's character Heather or Edith, as his kin. And sort of that moment where she's sort of tending to some of the blood around his mouth and his wounds a little bit and everything at the end when they go back to the house. It's just that bit of, okay, this is actually a guy too in there somewhere. So humanizing him just a tad, but not taking away from sort of the tension you have whenever he's in the room. And despite some of the dodgy CG when he does duel the sheriff with the chainsaw and everything like that and knocks him into the meat grinder, it's still a cool sequence to actually sort of have your main character on the side of this for a change. And the sheriff making the choice, so yeah, this mayor is kind of shitty, so it's kind of right that I get to let him handle whatever he's going to do here. It's a circle, and the mayor had it coming. But yeah, I'm rambling. I'm turning this into a mini rant for some reason. But I always thought Texas Chainsaw 3D was underrated. It starts off probably as your most typical of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre films, in terms of just the slasher vibe of it all. But the story, and again, what I've said ad nauseum at this point, the perspective they take, I think, makes it pretty different and kind of stands out for me. So yeah, let me know what you guys thought about this one. I'm sure I'm in the minority in saying I actually really, really like it. But yeah, catch you guys next time, and peace.